When I first heard the name Broker Cresen ltd, it reached me in the same way countless other names do in conversations among traders. Some colleagues would talk about positive results. Others would whisper the word Scam Cresen ltd with a mixture of bitterness and resignation, and still others would dismiss the whole subject, claiming that every company in the market promises more than it can deliver. But for me, these stories are never just passing chatter. I have always been the type of person who tests things personally, who prefers first-hand experience over second-hand warnings. My first steps with CresenLtd.com began not with bold expectations but with a quiet kind of curiosity. I visited the platform, observed its structure, and noticed a certain simplicity in the way it presented itself. Of course, I had already read a dozen contradictory voices, a harsh review Cresen Ltd here, a sharp opinion Cresen Ltd there, comments labeling everything as scamcresenltd.com, and then, in contrast, traders calmly explaining why brokercresenltd.com had become their reliable partner. In that tension between extremes, I found my motivation. Starting a journey with any financial institution always feels like stepping into a half-lit room. You sense the shapes, the outlines, but only time will reveal the details. As I explored Forex Cresen Ltd, I wanted to know whether it could withstand not only the calm days of trading, but also those turbulent moments when the market rages. Would the tools remain steady? Would execution remain precise? These were not idle questions for me. I had lived through platforms that buckled under stress, and I was determined to find out whether Forex Cresen Ltd.com was any different. I remember my first real trade. There was a stillness in my room, the kind of silence you only hear when you are waiting for the unknown. I clicked through, placing my order with the awareness that hundreds of reviews, some praising, some damning, had already tried to capture what I was about to feel. Yet, in that instant, the labels like Scam Cresen Ltd or ReviewCresenLtd.com became meaningless. What mattered was how the system responded to me, here and now. And it did. Smooth, efficient, no unnecessary hesitation. The days turned into weeks, and I began to recognize patterns. One of the things that struck me most was how consistent the platform's rhythm felt. I compared it, silently, to some past experiences that had left me questioning my trust in brokers. Each time I checked back with public conversations, browsing through yet another review Cresen Ltd or stumbling upon someone's intense opinion, CresenLtd.com. Often I smiled at how distant those words seemed from what I was living. This isn't to say everything was flawless. Trading never is. There were days when my decisions failed me, when losses pressed harder than wins. In those moments, it would have been easy to project frustration onto the company, to write something bitter like scamcresenltd.com and leave it at that. But honesty demanded more. My errors were mine, and the mechanisms I was using held steady regardless of my mood. That realization kept me grounded, reminding me of the importance of separating noise from truth. Over time, I began to appreciate the depth of the services. Broker Cresen Ltd seemed less like a faceless machine and more like a framework built to adapt. It gave me access, clarity, and control, things I once assumed could only come at the cost of constant complications. When I read through another round of reviews CresenLtd.com, I noticed the repetition. Some hailed the speed, others focused on costs, and of course, a few still cried Scam Cresen Ltd with the same conviction as before. But the contrast itself reassured me. Real businesses always attract divided voices. What fascinated me most was how financial technologies quietly weave themselves into our routines. Logging into CresenLtd.com became as natural as checking my email in the morning. I would analyze, trade, withdraw, and repeat. And while the words Broker Cresen ltd.com or Forex Cresen ltd looked almost clinical on the screen, behind them stood hours of human concentration, mistakes, little victories, and the gradual shaping of my confidence. I suppose what I am trying to express is that my personal opinion Cresen ltd cannot be reduced to a headline or a single review. It has layers. It contains mornings of hesitation, afternoons of research, nights of decisions. It has both skepticism, shaped by the echo of warnings like Scam Cresen ltd, and trust, born from the stability I encountered day after day. As I write this now, looking back on months of consistent use, I realize that my experiment with Forex Cresen ltd.com was less about testing the company and more about testing myself. Could I cut through the endless ocean of reviews, claims, and accusations and form an authentic view? The answer, I believe, is yes. The platform gave me the tools, but the clarity was mine to find. And perhaps that is the ultimate lesson. Behind every review Cresen ltd, every heated opinion Cresen ltd.com, every whisper of Scam Cresen ltd.com, there lies someone's personal story. Mine, for what it is worth, has been shaped not by the fear of fraud, but by the discovery of consistency. And for a trader like me, there is no greater measure of reliability.